The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the New York Giants 30-10 on Monday Night Football to cap off Week 11 of the NFL season. We're talking about the game, breaking down the offensive and defensive performances, picking plays and players of the game, and hearing from Bucs fans who stayed up late to get their thoughts in after the game. All of that coming right now on the Locked On Bucs podcast.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bucs Nation, and welcome to your Victory Tuesday edition of the Locked On Bucs podcast. Thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or view every single day. I'm David Harrison, one half of the hosting duo here at the Locked On Bucs podcast. My co-host James Jarko couldn't be here for this episode. He's got to get up way too early. Fortunately, I do not have that problem after watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeat the New York Giants 30-10 on Monday Night Football. Again, wrapping up the NFL's Week 11 schedule of game. We here at the Locked On Bucs podcast are free, and we are available on all platforms, including YouTube. So if you're not watching us right now on YouTube, please head over there, click the subscribe button and the notification button. Find out every time we drop a fresh episode of this very podcast talking about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And listen, guys, in the beginning of this game, a little bit closer than I think everybody wanted it to be. Heading into halftime, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers held a 17-10 lead over Daniel Jones and the New York Giants, but the New York Giants got the ball back to start the second half because they won the toss, chose to defer like many teams do nowadays. Buccaneers starting off with the ball in that part of the game, right, started off pretty well with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking that opening kickoff, starting their first drive at their own 27, taking 3 minutes, 57 seconds off the clock to go 73 yards on 8 plays, finishing it off with a Tom Brady touchdown pass to Chris Godwin. That touchdown pass for 13 yards gave the Buccaneers the early 7-0 lead. But the New York Giants actually came back on their very first possession as well, put together a 7-minute drive spanning 13 plays, 51 yards. Didn't get into the end zone, though, which is, I think, a pretty critical part of this game. The New York Giants entering into this game dead last in the NFL in red zone offense. The Buccaneers were able to keep that trend going, keeping Daniel Jones and the Giants offense out of the end zone, making the game 7-3. The Buccaneers then came back on their second drive, extended the lead back out 7 to 10-3. And that's when some of these issues kind of started to come in, right? And that's kind of the storyline of the game. A little bit of it was health, and a little bit of it was self-inflicted wounds that we've seen over the last 2 weeks during the 2-game losing streak to the New Orleans Saints and the Washington football team. And in this game in total, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had 6 penalties, which is not 11. It's not 8, right? But 6 is still more than you really want to have. 4 of those penalties, guys, came in the first half, and an interception inside the Buccaneers' own red zone. The screen pass that, depending on the angle, give a lot of credit to Louis Riddick there of the Monday Night Football telecast and the broadcast team after the interception. So from Jump Street, what you saw is Tom Brady turn, fire a screen pass, basically ate up Mike Evans, right? Hit him in the shoulder pad, bounced off, ricocheted. Adoree Jackson intercepts it for the New York Giants. 2 plays later, Andrew Thomas is fat guy dancing in the end zone with a touchdown, his first career touchdown, and more touchdowns than most offensive linemen catch in their entirety of their career. Of course, Andrew Thomas, offensive lineman drafted ahead of Tristan Wirfs by the New York Giants. He was the first offensive tackle. If you go back to that year's draft, there was the big 4 offensive tackles that year. Andrew Thomas, the first one off the board to the New York Giants, scores a touchdown on Monday night. Something that Tristan Wirfs hasn't been able to do yet. But hey, maybe this will inspire the Buccaneers later a little bit, and maybe we see Tristan Wirfs get in on the scoring action. But as it is, the New York Giants are able to take that interception and they turn that into points, tie the game at 10. Of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneers end up making it 17-10 before they hit the locker rooms. But the important part, I think, is that of the 6 penalties that the Buccaneers had, 4 of them came in the first half. Obviously, the interception also came in the first half. But even of those 4 penalties in the first half, there was the Tristan Wirfs penalty, right, which I think a lot of people agree was not really a holding penalty. I think, Bruce Arians was on the sideline telling everybody that, the Giants defender fell. He didn't get taken to the ground, tackled by Tristan Wirfs. He fell. And you don't want to reward a guy for not doing his job and basically getting owned by one of the best right tackles, if not the best right tackle in the National Football League. And then you have the delay of game penalty. So that penalty, I mean, you can kind of take that one, throw it out. So 5 total penalties for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You take away that delay of game, which was obviously done on purpose to make the punt a little bit more palatable in that moment. Either way, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out of the locker room and they put together 13 unanswered points in the second half over the third and fourth quarter. 2 Ryan Suckup field goals and another touchdown. That one going to Mike Evans. A historic touchdown as Mike Evans, with that touchdown, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. Monday Night Football, it's prime time, and he breaks the NFL, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rather, franchise record for total touchdowns, surpassing Mike Allstott, who was in town, or who was in attendance rather, at the game, because John Lynch received his Hall of Fame ring at halftime. So Mike Allstott was in attendance. Rondé Barber was up there with him. Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, all those guys up there enjoying the festivities. So Mike Evans gets his record-setting franchise touchdown to help the Buccaneers extend their lead even more, and they end up leaving the first half with a 7-point lead. They finish the game with a 10-point lead, a 10-point win, and they're now 7-3 on the season, third place in the NFC playoff race, and have a 2-game lead in the NFC South. Coming up here on the rest of the Locked On Bucs podcast, guys, we're going to talk about the offense specifically. We're going to get a little bit deeper into some stats, and we're going to talk about some player performances. Same thing with the defense, what they were able to do against the New York Giants offense, and Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, not dropping much of anything on Monday night. And we're going to do that here, free and available on all platforms on the Locked On Bucs podcast. Thanks again, Bucs Nation, for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen or watch every single day, free and available on all platforms. David Harrison on Twitter at dharrison82, writer over at bucsnation.com, covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My normal co-host, James Jarko, off for this episode. Primetime games do a wonder on his work schedule, so he's getting some rest so that he doesn't have a disastrous experience at work on Tuesday morning. Victory Tuesday. Hopefully you guys are all out there enjoying it and celebrating it as your Tampa Bay Buccaneers advance to 7-3 in the 2021 NFL season. Find James on Twitter at @JARK_Bucs, and the show is at Locked On Bucs. If you've been with us for a while, or even if you've only listened to us for a week or so, first off, if you're new, welcome to the show. Hopefully you like what you see or hear and you stick around a little bit. But you guys know that we love interacting with Buccaneers fans. We love giving a platform to Buccaneers fans to be able to voice their frustrations sometimes, concerns at others, and celebrations, especially following wins like the 30-10 win over the New York Giants on Monday nights. And you also know one of our regulars is Yusuf out in Phoenix. So let's hear from Yusuf right now following the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' latest victory.
So that's the way I want to see the Bucs play week in and week out. This is Yusuf out here in Phoenix. This game wasn't perfect when it comes to the penalty problem. I don't think it was as bad as the last 2 weeks, but still, we have some problems in that area still where, we scored a touchdown tonight that was called back because of a hold on Tristan Wirfs. You can argue maybe it was a fine line there in a hold. I don't know. People were complaining on Twitter about it. I thought it was pretty obvious, but what do I know? It's just still ridiculous that we're still dealing with this problem. Overall, the production on both sides of the ball were really good. I thought SMB being back in the secondary really, really boosted that secondary. We had an energy back there tonight. Gronk being back, making some huge catches over the middle. Great to see him out there again. Really happy with the win and looking forward to the Indy game next week. Going to be tough. As you know, never getting too high, but not getting too low either. As always, go Bucs.
All right, Yusuf, appreciate the call as always, brother. Hope you're doing well out there. Hope you enjoy the game. Obviously, enjoy the win. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the game. And yeah, the penalties, listen, penalties are never going to be a good thing. They're never going to come at a good time. But again, going through it, 11 penalties against the New Orleans Saints. I think it was 8 against the Washington football team. You knock it down to 6 in this game. Really 5 again if you discount the delay of game that was taken intentionally to make it a better punt for Bradley Pinion there. Really, 5 penalties is not terrible. It's not ideal, right? I mean, ideally you get 0, but the way the game kind of works and the way the things kind of go, you're going to get 1 here or there. The things you really want to kind of avoid are some of the simpler things in the game, right? Lining up correctly. And you have a penalty at one point in the game against Mike Evans for an illegal formation. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Even when they showed the replay, I didn't see anything wrong with what Mike Evans was doing. For the end of a formation, an offensive lineman can't be the last guy on the line of scrimmage, and Mike Evans was on the line of scrimmage. Maybe he didn't do the thing they do, or the wide receiver points to the official and says, "Hey, I'm on the line of scrimmage." I don't know, man. Maybe that's what it was. It was weird. There was a tweet that I actually retweeted from my personal Twitter account that said that the flag came from 30 yards down the field, like during the play. It wasn't even from the line judge, or the official that was on the line of scrimmage. So that was weird. And then I watched the very next snap, and Mike Evans was in the exact same position he was in the play before, and the next guy inside on the formation was an offensive lineman, not a tight end or anybody else. So, and they didn't flag him for that one. So I can't justify every single penalty. I can't explain all of the penalties. If Coach Arians wants to get an explanation on that, then he has it within his rights to request it, of course. But yeah, I mean, ideally you have no penalties. The Tristan Wirfs one, I think it's a matter of angles and a matter of perception, because really, at the end of the day, none of us were up close enough, and at least from the bit that I saw on the Monday Night Football broadcast, it didn't look like they had an angle to really show it, and they weren't really all that interested in showing it. But I'll tell you, what a play on that play, right, by Chris Godwin to get close to or at the goal line on that play. Too bad it was called back, of course, with that penalty. But speaking about the offense, right, finishing this thing up, let's rally it down a little bit. Tom Brady goes 30 for 46, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, just a commanding performance from him. Obviously, you have the 1 interception that I don't think anybody is going to blame Tom Brady for. The 307 yards, I mean, the 2 touchdowns, taking what the defense gives you. You talk about Rob Gronkowski, Yusef, and what he kind of does for that offense. And I think you saw it here a little bit. The Washington football team defense was able to kind of sit back and kind of let the dump offs come and everything else, but they didn't have to really account for a whole lot. Cam Brate and even OJ Howard just not as dynamic a tight end right now as Rob Gronkowski is and has been. The New Orleans Saints defense was able to get away with a little bit as well, but really more so the Washington defense. And yeah, Rob Gronkowski returns, catches 6 of his 8 targets for 71 yards. After the game was kind of asked about returning, he kind of played it off a little bit, kind of typical Rob Gronkowski fashion. But yeah, definitely great to see Gronk back there on the field. Talking about Mike Evans, that history-making 1 touchdown on this game, came on 11 targets, 6 catches, 73 yards for easily the best wide receiver in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. And he's already got some records, already beaten Randy Moss's record, NFL record, and now he's got the franchise record for touchdowns. So easily Mike Evans going in the Ring of Honor someday. Chris Godwin, following in his footsteps a little bit, maybe not as impressive, right? Doesn't have the 1,000-yard streak to start his career or anything like that, but 6 catches on 6 targets, 65 yards, and a touchdown of his own, almost 2, like you said, pointed out there, if not for the penalty, although I think they spotted it short and he was probably down before he got to the goal line there. Leonard Fournette, kind of a quiet night overall, right? Really. But when you look at the totality of his contribution, 74 yards of offense on 16 touches, including catching all 6 of his receptions. I think that was a big thing. You had a drop or 2 against Washington. I wanted to see him clean that up. Ronald Jones getting back on the field. I know a lot of us have been kind of wondering what's up with Rojo, and Bruce Arians said after the Washington game that they had more snaps. They had plans to get him in the game. They got him in a little earlier this weekend than I think a lot of people expected. He ends up with 8 carries, 33 yards, and a touchdown. So if you had him in fantasy, you probably benched him, right? So he probably didn't help you at all. But hey, good to see Rojo on the field. Good to see him getting a score there. 6 for 13 on 3rd down for the team, 402 yards of total offense. Got into the New York Giants red zone 5 times, scored touchdowns on 3 of those trips compared to the Giants. And as we flip over to the defensive side, Yusef, you talk about Sean Murphy-Bunting being back. Absolutely great to see SMB back on the field. The Giants offense, guys, got into the Buccaneers red zone twice. And one of those times was off the interception. The other time was on the very first possession of the game that they had. So outside of that, the Giants never sniffed the red zone. In fact, the Giants offense themselves only crossed the Buccaneers 50-yard line, or the 50-yard line, into Buccaneers territory twice. Again, once on that opening drive. I don't call the interception the offense crossing the 50, right? They didn't cross they got the ball in the red zone. They didn't cross the 50. They did cross the 50 one more time, get into Buccaneers territory on their own, ended up turning the ball over on down. So, I mean, a masterful defensive performance from the players, guys like SMB, Devon White, Levante David, but then also Todd Bowles came out with a great game plan against a team that honestly has given this team some problems over the last 2 years. And those are 2 years that Todd Bowles has been the defensive coordinator. So this was kind of a get right game for him as well. Learn some of the lessons from previous matchups against Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Held the Giants offense just to 1 third down conversion on 9 tries, just 215 yards total offense. Daniel Jones threw for 167 yards, the 1 touchdown to Andrew Thomas, 2 interceptions. Saquon Barkley, 12 touches for 56 yards, pretty much nothing. Even Kadarius Toney. I noticed on the Monday Night Football broadcast, they were kind of trying to talk Kadarius Toney up a little bit. Look, Kadarius Toney is supposed to be their big play threat, their fast young player. And you saw some shiftiness from him, absolutely. Saw him avoiding some tackles here and there. 7 catches on 12 targets is not a bad night. 40 yards, that's all he got, really. Less than 6 yards per catch, and this is your downfield threat. Again, Adoree Jackson ends up with the interception. Going back to the off-ball linebackers, Devon White, Levante David, those are the guys that James and I pointed out in our final preview episode that need to bring the energy, bring the heat, lead the defense in that energy. They each tied for the team lead with 8 tackles apiece. Sean Murphy-Bunting, second place, tied for second place, third place, however you want to call it, with those two being tied for first place with 7 tackles. Antoine Winfield Jr. was running around the field making plays, had that really big pass breakup on Kadarius Toney, right? Kadarius Toney was on the sideline, probably had a first down, but Antoine Winfield gets in there before he's able to take that third step or make a football move, knock the ball out. Initially called a catch on the field. Bruce Arians wisely throws the challenge flag, gets that reversed. Jason Pierre-Paul, even with the torn rotator cuff, switching sides of the defensive formation to give his good shoulder the advantage, making plays for the defense as well. Shaq Barrett was getting after the quarterback all day long. We saw Raheem Nunez-Roches getting involved. Steve McClendon with the interception. Mike Edwards with an interception. Anthony Nelson and Cam Gill with sacks. And then Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was just running all over the field. Not a whole lot of stats for him, but just running all over the field. The defense definitely flying around the football on Monday night for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I can't look at a single New York Giant, guys, and say that they had a good game, but I can look across the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster and say that they had a good game, a good night, a good day, and we're going to have a good day coming up on Thursday. I know I am. Hopefully you are as well, because it's going to be Thanksgiving. The Buccaneers have already won. They're not going to be playing. The Dallas Cowboys are probably going to take an L. The New Orleans Saints are probably going to take an L. It's going to be a good day all around, and that's what Thanksgiving is all about. It's all about goodness, happiness, and football, and nothing goes better with football than turkey and betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season, more props, odds, and lines than ever before, because BetOnline remains your number one spot for all your sports action this Thanksgiving. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website, sign up today, and get your 50% welcome bonus with your promo when you use a promo code Locked On your first deposit. And it's not just football. BetOnline has pro and college hoops, hockey, boxing, UFC, and your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait. Take advantage of all the offers waiting for you in the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. We're stuffed with deals this Thanksgiving at betonline.ag. Back now for one last segment on this Victory Tuesday episode of the Locked On Bucs podcast. But before we go any closer or any further, let's hear from Tyler out in Boston.
What's up, boys? Tyler from Boston. Man, it's so great to get back into the win column. And I think it was also just really important to take advantage of this weekend in which our division rivals lost and we could just inch a little bit closer to that 1 seed. And Tom looks good. The team looked good. They had a good game plan. Like Tom said, sucks to lose 3 weeks in a row, but luckily the Bucs were able to get a convincing win over New York on primetime. It really just felt like the better team won today. And they have a big game coming up against the Indianapolis Jonathan Taylors. And I hope that they can continue to get healthy and prepare for that game. Especially, I hope we get Vea and AB back. But focusing on this week, just a great win. Go Bucs.
All right, Tyler, thanks for coming through. The Indianapolis Jonathan Taylors. I love that. And that's really, I don't want to give too much away, but that's really going to kind of be the crux of it, right? You stop Jonathan Taylor, you have a really good chance of stopping the Indianapolis Colts. That's going to be a good game either way. Looking forward to discussing that and covering that game with all of you guys as well. But like Tyler said, right, 7-3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, after a 30-10 win over the New York Giants, improve on the year. Currently carrying a 2-game lead in the NFC South, third seed in the NFC playoff race. And look, the New Orleans Saints are on a 3-game losing streak. The Atlanta Falcons are on a 2-game losing streak. The Carolina Panthers just lost to the Washington football team, which probably has a lot of their fans feeling a certain kind of way. But to be honest with you, Washington playing some pretty good football these last couple of weeks. Very well could also win a game against the Seattle Seahawks, which are actually favored to win, but a lot of people are not going to give them the edge in that game either. But we're talking Buccaneers, right? And let's get to the players and plays of the game. Now, James isn't here, but I did ask him to go ahead and send me his play and player of the game before the game was over and before he had to run off. So let's start off with our plays of the game. And James picked Steve McClendon's interception, Devon White getting the assist on said interception, pressuring Daniel Jones. I mean, guys, this defense flying around Daniel Jones. And look, if you had to go to bed early, or if you didn't watch the game, or you DVR'd it or something, so you're listening to this as kind of a primer or something like that, do yourself a favor. If you didn't watch the game, watch it. Even though you know what happened, you know the score and all that stuff, there's not a whole lot of tension or suspense and what was going to happen and all that stuff. Watch the game anyway and watch your defense just fly around that New York Giants offense. And yeah, Steve McClendon, the benefactor of a Devon White pressure, Daniel Jones making just an inexcusable bad decision, an inexplicably bad decision to throw the ball. And shout out again to Louis Riddick of the ESPN crew, Monday Night Football coverage team. He actually came back and diagrammed where Daniel was trying to throw the ball. It was never going to make it there, and he can't try to make that decision. So that's James's play of the game. My play of the game is the Mike Evans touchdown. Really not so much. I mean, I guess you can say that's kind of the one that really kind of put it to bed, and Bucs fans at that point kind of started to relax a little bit. So, okay, they're going to win this game, and the team's going to move on. The losing streak is going to end, and hopefully a new winning streak. I know Devon White tweeted out earlier Monday, let's go out there and start a new winning streak. So I'm sure that's what Buccaneers fans are hoping is about to happen. But really, the Mike Evans touchdown, man. I mean, if there's a player on this team that deserves to be celebrated more than maybe some of the others, it's Mike Evans. He's been through with this team. He and Levante, really. I mean, Levante's been through a lot with this team as well. But Mike Evans, the consecutive seasons with 1,000 yards receiving to start a career, breaking Randy Moss's record, the franchise records that he's had, catches the 600th touchdown pass from Tom Brady, because why wouldn't he? And then he breaks the franchise record for touchdowns in this game. So that touchdown doesn't stand alone as maybe the crucial part of the game, but I think it's a big enough moment in this game that it deserves to be my play of the game. Moving over to players of the game, James picked Sean Murphy-Bunting. And yeah, Sean made some plays. He was good in coverage. You saw the defensive pass interference flag that got thrown, where it looked honestly at first to me like the Giants receiver was actually pulling on the arm sleeve, the elbow sleeve that SMB was wearing. But upon replay, it just looks like the feet got tangled up. The flag was picked up. But good to see Sean Murphy-Bunting out on the field. Didn't look all that rusty, to be honest with you. Didn't make a whole lot of plays, splash plays maybe that anybody was looking for. But the defense definitely looked better, more secure in the back end in this game against some pretty solid receivers and guys like Darius Slayton and Kenny Galladay. Even though they're struggling, you give those guys some open space and some ability to work, they're going to make you pay for it. So good game from Sean Murphy-Bunting, and then again finishing second on the team with 7 total tackles on Monday night. My player of the game, Devon White. I picked him as my predicted player of the game. I said you got to bring the energy. The head coach called out and said, if everybody came to Washington with the energy that Devon White did on game day, they probably win that game. Devon tweeted out after the game, I think it was the day after, like, everybody's going to see who really loves this. You heard him screaming. You saw him running after ball carriers, wide receivers, tight ends, quarterbacks, whoever he could get after. He was getting. I saw him. He actually hit one of his own teammates at one point on the sideline, and still screamed about the hit that he laid on his own guy. And then he checked on him, make sure that he was okay, which he was. So that's good. But yeah, Devon White, tied for the lead for the team in tackles with Levante David, and not only an assist. I was having a Twitter back and forth with one of my followers, and says he listens to the show, so you're going to hear yourself get a little bit of credit here. Got Devon White with the assist on the Steve McClendon interception, also an assist on the Mike Edwards interception. If you remember, Daniel Jones throws the ball out there. Devon White comes screaming across the formation, tips it into the waiting hands of Mike Edwards. I had tweeted shortly before that Daniel Jones was either going to get destroyed by a Buccaneers blitzer or he was going to throw an interception, because when a quarterback is panic throwing the ball that quickly as often as he was to avoid the pressure, eventually someone's going to cut in front of it and they're going to make a play. And that's exactly what ended up happening. The Buccaneers controlled that game outside of some of the early penalties, right? Like Yusuf talked about, outside of the early interception. Really, once you got into about the fourth possession of the game, it was all Buccaneers for the rest of the time. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come out of week 11, 7-3, third place in the NFC playoff race, first place in the NFC South with a 2-game lead. Next week, they head to Indianapolis to face off against the Indianapolis Colts, looking to turn 7-3 into 8-3. Tomorrow is WTSP Wednesday, so I will not be here. James Yarko will be back, though, with Evan Klosky of 10 Tampa Bay as they dive a little bit deeper into this contest. You're going to hear some fresh perspectives from James and from Evan both on this game, so that'll be a good time. Continue to call in with your own takes if you have them. Send those to 813-444-5841, or if you don't want to hear your voice on the show, write it in to lockedonbucks@gmail.com. Thank you again for making the Locked On Bucs podcast your first listen every day. I'm your host, David Harrison, on Twitter at dharrison82, writer over at bucksnation.com, a part of SB Nation. My co-host James Yarko on Twitter at jyarko_Bucks. The show at Locked On Bucks. Make your second listen of the day the Locked On Bets podcast, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, and expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. Until we meet again, until we speak again, Bucs fans, Bucs Nation, if you're out and about, please be kind to one another. Please be safe. And thank you for joining me right here at Locked On Bucs.